Welcome back to the show, you radical folks. Today I talked to Steven Jaggers. You expect to learn how we met in a bathroom in Austin, Texas, and how he ended up dating one of my best friends in a completely unrelated but very synchronistic way, what he's doing to change the lives of thousands of people. Steven is the founder of Somatic Release and Soma IQ, a breathwork and somatic healing company that has almost 3,000 practitioners worldwide. And he personally has gifted his experiences, his breathwork sessions to almost 50,000 people and everything that he's learned along the way. His story of coming up in a home, of dealing with the trauma associated with parents who were struggling with addiction, his healing through that, how he followed this thread of intuition that led him to doing what he's doing today, and why connection sits at the root of it all. Everything, the healing, the conflicts that we see. This is such an enlightening conversation. There's so much value here. There's so much healing here. So let's get into it with Steven Jaggers. What's up, Mr. Steven Jaggers? The first time I met you was in a bathroom in a restaurant in Austin. And we got to talk and we introduced ourselves. And I said, I'll never forget this guy's name because moves like Jagger and Steven. And my name is Steve. And I was like, that's an easy one. And then we ended up sitting next to each other during that dinner, hit it off like a house on fire, shared tons of great conversation. And the reason I want to share this story is because it's just fascinating how life works and transpires sometimes to put the right people on your map. So we connected, and all I remember you like really talking about was this big change that was coming for you. You were really excited. You were moving states from Austin. You were going out to Colorado. You were on a big personal shift and journey in terms of what you were going to do to take your business to the next level. And you teased this idea of being really excited about this girl you were talking to. And I was just really happy for you, man. I didn't think too much about it. And lo and behold, a few months goes past, and I knew I was going to podcast with this guy one day. We'll get him down. And then one of my other friends, who's a past guest on the show, dear friend, Miss Rachel Bell, posts a story with none other than you in it, announcing that you two had connected. And of course, she was the girl in Colorado all along. And I just was beaming. I immediately sent you both a voice note and was like, this is too good. I love it. I love you guys. And I'm super excited for us to drop in today and learn all about your genius as well, Mr. Steven. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. It's great to be here with you. I remember seeing you and like, oh, this guy looks epic. Oh, look at his shoes. We got the same shoes on. Oh yeah, we're both here for Vivo, and yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation.
Well, let's bring the third parties, the online world, into the conversation today. I'm super excited to dive into everything that you do with somatics and breath work and healing and connection. But I'm always very interested as to how somebody ended up in this position. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about your backstory, because people don't get into this kind of work usually by
Yeah.
following the conventional path. So take me back a little bit, whatever feels prescient to share about, your upbringing and some of the stuff that led to putting you in position to do what you do today.
Yeah, appreciate that. So I'm an only child. I grew up. My parents were they were addicts, struggling with a lot of different things. And as a child, you don't really fully know what was going on, but before I was born and probably for the first 5 years, they were pretty addicted to some hard drugs, meth, cocaine,
Yikes.
really, really struggling. And when I was about 6, they went to rehab, got clean, completely shifted their life. And yeah, it gave me an incredible life, just poured so much love into me and really wanted to I could feel how they wanted to just not pass down the stuff that they were dealing with,
Mm,
because a lot of the addiction that they were dealing with was coming from their own childhood, right? It's passed down, and we can get into that. But as a child, I was always really sensitive. I knew that something was off. I didn't know exactly what addiction was and that whole thing. And so fast forward, um, I always loved being outside. Like I just loved being outside. I played basketball. I played baseball. I was an amateur skateboarder. I did jujitsu. I was always the kid outside running around. And it took me a while to realize this, but I loved anything that got me into my body, because if I was in my body, I didn't have to think about what was going on at home. I didn't have to think about the future. I wasn't thinking about the past, but I was fully in myself.
Hmm.
And so fast forward into high school, like I witnessed my parents really struggling with anxiety, depression, and they had gotten off of those drugs but had switched to prescription medications. And I remember just this, the same kind of script that would come out of my parents' mouth that would be like, I'm trying a new medicine, and maybe this medicine will help me be able to come to your sports games and meet other people's families. And I just remember this feeling of like, what's at the core of this? And
Mm.
so outside of high school, I I originally went to school for addiction psychology. I just like, I think that stirred something in me to really want to know what's at the core of this. And so going down that route, as soon as as soon as the curriculum started talking about, okay, the DSM-4 at the time, and you know, um, prescribing different things for certain people and diagnosis, there was like this feeling inside that was like, this ain't it, Captain. This is not the thing. And so I shifted. I went from addiction psychology to physical therapy because I was always fascinated with the body. I love being in the body. And then I went down that route, and I found it to be just incredibly mechanical. Like they look at the body as such just a mechanical entity, and this, the origin and the
Right.
insertion. And it was very like there was no understanding of the mind. There was no understanding of the emotions and how they affect each other. And so little did I realize I went down the sort of mind route, and I said, let's not do that. I didn't really resonate with that. Then I went down the body route, the traditional body route, didn't really resonate with that. And so I ended up dropping out. And during that time, I was exploring with, or let's say I was smoking a lot of cannabis at that point in time. And I wanted to get a job that needed to take a drug test. And I was about 20 years old at that time. And so I stopped smoking cannabis. And when I stopped, I started having these wild lucid dreams. And for
Mm.
those of you that are familiar with, it's called REM reuptake. If you're a cannabis user, then if you stop, then you start having this REM reuptake where you start having just wild lucid dreams. And I remember researching it, and I found this book called Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe, who started talking about your astral body and the energetic body, and it sent me down the rabbit hole. And from that point, I found a holistic school that also taught a ton of different types of body work, but also energetic styles of body work, polarity therapy, cranial sacral therapy. And it literally was in my backyard in Arizona where I grew up. And so I just enrolled into school there, not even thinking about it. At the time I walked into the school, and there was like chakras on the wall, and I'm like, oh, this looks amazing.
Mm.
Like, and so I went to school for body work. I became a neuromuscular therapist, really focusing on like injury rehabilitation, but then also just a deep fascination on the Eastern side, on the energetics of the body. And I fell in love with it. As soon as I got my hands on someone's body, all the things that I was trying to learn in books started to make sense for me. It started to actually make sensation
Mm.
within me. And I truly believe that a lot of us are experiential, hands-on learners, that we might not have done well in school, but as soon as we actually get into the thing, um, yeah. So I fell in love with it, and I quickly became an instructor there. As soon as I finished school, my teachers loved me. I was definitely like, I would just continue to take classes over and over and over again because I loved it. So I became a teacher, fell in love with teaching. I taught a lot of the different body works there, from anatomy to kinesiology to a lot of the Eastern and more energetic somatic based body works. Um, and yeah, I love teaching. I love witnessing the light bulbs come on for people. And during that time, I was also exploring with different psychedelic medicines from a more recreational perspective. But I found this organization called MAPS,
Mm-hmm.
and I volunteered for them because I'm like, this had a profound impact in my own healing. I volunteered for them. And then in 2016, I went and volunteered at the MAPS conference. And I had a friend say, "Hey, you need to go try this breathwork session." And lo and behold, it was with a man named Stan Groff.
Oh,
It
wow.
was a holotropic breathwork session. And at that point in time, I'm like, well, my friends were talking about, they were like, this is going to be so powerful. And I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be as powerful as psilocybin or LSD or any of the psychedelics that I was exploring with at that time. And I went to the session, and within about 20 minutes of getting into the breath work, I felt this pop in my thoracic spine. And when I was about 16, I went to the doctor and was diagnosed with like a mild scoliosis in my thoracic spine, like right in my sort of fire center, if those are familiar with like the energetics of the body. And I felt this pop in my thoracic spine, right where my scoliosis was. And immediately my whole body was flooded with anger, like an amount of rage that I had never felt before. Rage at my family, my upbringing, all of the like the ways in which I wish they could have shown up for me. After that passed through, I felt this deep sadness because underneath that anger, I actually just wanted their love. And I'd really never let myself feel that. After that kind of passed through, then I felt this tremendous like gratitude and forgiveness for them for doing the absolute best that they possibly could
Mm.
have. And then after that, it was like this, it was more clarity than I had ever experienced in my life. And it was like I cleared through this emotional process to become incredibly clear. And I watched my whole life kind of lead up into this moment. And I had this massive clarity that was like, holy shit, I've spent this whole time trying to learn the mind, trying to learn the body, learning body work, learning all the different ranges within body work. And I haven't even looked at the breath. And
Mm.
actually, I am utilizing the breath all of the time. And from understanding basic anatomy, like, okay, if somebody is holding their breath while I'm trying to physically work on them, then anything that I'm doing with them isn't actually landing because they're in a defensive state. And so I'm working against their physiology. So I started utilizing breath work and studying a lot of the different types of breath work and there's a lot of different dogma in the breath work space. A lot of the over breathing styles of breath work that are more journey oriented, to the under breathing, CO2 tolerance and athletic performance and how to breathe less. And I kind of just started studying all of them, figuring out which ones kind of really landed for me and how to start applying those into my breath or my body work sessions with guiding somebody through powerful prompts. I had taken NLP and life coaching, and I started just throwing all of the different things together. And in 2020, when COVID happened, I was doing a ton of body work, and then everything shut down and I couldn't really work on people anymore. So I had to stop. I took a break. I had a couple clients that really trusted me, and a few of them were, one was a naturopathic doctor. Another one was a PhD psychologist. And another one was like a really popular YouTuber. His name's Aaron Dowdy. I don't know if you know him, but, and I had this woman who was the therapist say, hey, this breathwork stuff is incredibly powerful. Can you teach me how to do this with my clients?
Mm.
And I had this moment come on with a light bulb that was like, well, I was an instructor. I know how to make a lesson plan. I've studied all these different things. Let me try to distill it into its purest essence and make it my own. And I ran my first little training out of my house with 5 people. And from there, I did another one the next month, and I just literally messaged all of my clients like, hey, do you want to come learn this? And I had, I knew a lot of practitioners and coaches because I was already an instructor at the school. And then after the third one, I took it outside of my apartment with 5 people. I rented a place, ended up being like 10 people. And then from there, I met my business partner. We took it online. And then it just started growing so much. And at this point in time, we have about 2,800 practitioners worldwide in
Wow.
almost 30, 40 different countries. And we just got fully accredited by Arizona State University to offer college level credit for it. And I
Let's
don't even
go.
have a bachelor's degree. So it's been a wild ride, man. And yeah, that's there's so much more I could fill in, but
Dude, that is incredible. And kudos to you for, even though it sounds like this started a long time ago and you didn't really know what on earth this was going to turn into, that you didn't betray that spidey sense, that intuition that was tingling all the way back when you just felt something was off. And that is a very somatic feeling, right? And one of the things I was taught or told years ago, and it stuck with me so much, and I think you'll like this, is don't ignore when the body speaks for what the mind thinks. Basically, don't gaslight yourself out of this knowing, this deep, something's not quite right. And it sounds like you were just stumbling forward directionally, like being pulled by this thread.
yeah.
And it turned into this crazy thing. And like, man, talk about the power of following your intuition. Like right there, what you've been able to create is really cool. And I love those stories like that. So, we've thrown around this word somatic.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to get your take on what that means. It sounds like it's feeling based. It's something to do with the body. How do you help people understand? Because I've heard you talk. You've used this term somatic literacy.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit for us.
Yeah. So somatic, it has a couple different, I mean, any word that we're using, like it really depends on who's putting the definition on it. And I think it's so important to actually define words because they're the carrier of meaning. Just like I could say somatic
Yeah.
and you could say somatic and we could mean completely different things. Or I could say trauma and you could say trauma, and we
Right.
like we
Right.
need to actually have definitions under it. And so from a Western perspective, somatic just means the state of my body and how it's affecting my mind. So it basically just means like the bottom up understanding of the state of my physical body, my nervous system, whether I'm in a fight or flight, freeze, whether I'm relaxed, and how is that affecting the quality of thoughts that I'm thinking. And so, and most most of our health paradigm is a top down understanding in our
Mm.
world. So like CBT, most mental health therapists have a very top down approach. They work with the mind and the thoughts and how that's actually affecting our body. And for me, what I've found is that it goes both ways. You cannot bypass either of them. And because the culture that we live in is so top down, that I think the world is starving for this bottom up understanding.
Mm.
And for me, somatics, it through my own discovery, it mimics and mirrors evolutionary biology more than anything, because we are animals. Like we're animals first. We think, and we're humans second. And we've bypassed the actual nature of our being. I mean, to me, it's actually mimicked in all of the issues in our world, that we're bypassing
Mm.
nature in general. So we're bypassing the nature of our body, and we're actually bypassing nature out in the world as well. And the more that we bypass that, the more that we disconnect from that, the sicker that we become. So we have forgotten that there's certain biological processes that are innate inside of us that we just cannot bypass, like the
Yeah.
instincts that we have. Those were not something that we needed to learn as a child. Our fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses, those are the memories that have been passed down to us through thousands and thousands of years for our own social survival. Or actually, our instincts are our personal survival, right? They keep us as an individual safe. Same thing with our
Mm.
emotions. Our emotions are actually our social survival, but they're not things that we needed to learn as a child. They're the memories, the patterns that have been passed down and cultivated through thousands of years that actually allow us to connect socially. Like emotions, I call it almost like the fascia or the connective tissue of life. They push and pull us away from each other, right? They pull us in with the people that we love, and they push away other people. They create war, they create babies, they create relationships. And these are not things that we needed to learn, but they've been passed down because the body that you're sitting in is actually, I mean, how old are you, Steve?
I'm 36.
36. Well, I hate to break it to you, but you are actually super old, man. You're ancient. Like, I'm 33 right now. That's the body that I'm sitting in. But my body is ancient. It's thousands and thousands of years old
Right.
because it's taken that long to cultivate these very intelligent processes that now that we've gotten to in this world that we're living in, we've become so mentally dominant that we have negated all those intelligent processes. So somatics is just looking at what are those intelligent processes that we go through? What are the ways in which we deal with stressors? How do we grow? How do we learn healthy attachment and connection? And really, how have we done that for so long? And my fascination is how do we do that in this modern world that has become so tech and mind driven? So somatics is basically just saying the state of your body, your emotions, your instincts, and the state of your nervous system, and how that's affecting your mindset. And the metaphor that I like to use, or the understanding, if you look at like a lot of these super old modalities such as yoga or meditation, understood this. It's like your nervous system is an antenna, your spine, your body is an antenna, and the state of your antenna is going to be what the quality of thoughts that you're picking up on. If your body's stuck in a fear and contracted state, well, then you're going to be picking up on fear and contracted ideas. It's really hard to think expansively if you're in a state of scarcity or if you're in a state of fight or flight. So that's the basics of understanding of somatics. But that being said, the root word of somatics, the word soma, actually comes from Greek mythology. And it actually just means your living wholeness, because they didn't separate the mind from the body. Like, you actually cannot separate it. Like I said, it's we affect ourselves both top down and bottom up, and they're all affecting each other, right? All parts are connected, all parts are affected. And so it is your living wholeness. But because we've swung the pendulum so far in one direction, I think that this understanding and this way of looking at things is becoming popular because the world is asking for it and needs it.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, man. That was beautifully synthesized. I think you're right. The pendulum swings aggressively, and there's a craving for something more real. It seems quite apparent that more intellectual horsepower or more technology isn't actually going to be the solution that people feel that they need. And I've always loved this idea of we're called human beings, not human doings, not human thinkings. Of course, those are things that we do and think, but at the root of it, we are beings. And I love that wholeness encapsulation and everything that you do to try and, like I said, increase the somatic literacy, the language of your body. What's really here? What's it communicating? What's it asking for? What's it needing? What's it wanting? Where is it completely basically offline because you've got so trapped between your ears that you're not even thinking or feeling with your body? It's all heady now. And I think this is why you're a huge proponent of connection first, above all else, not necessarily just to the outside world, right? But to self. Say more about why connection is central to everything that you do.
Yeah, man, this has been like, hindsight is 2020, and a lot of the things that I've been doing in my life haven't made sense until now. You know, each step of the way I look back and I'm like, oh, because I was following that little inner compass, which I call that felt sensation inside of you, it's all started to make sense. And through being in the personal development and growth and the spiritual community, I've watched over the years a lot of people utilize self-development as a subtle form of kind of attacking themselves. Because
Yeah.
what happens is, if you, and I teach a lot of practitioners this, and this is the baseline, but if you at any point are in a place of trying to fix another person, or trying to heal another person, or trying to change, right? You can lead a horse to water, but can't make them drink. If you're in that frame, well, you're creating the opposing force that is actually communicating to them that they're broken. We cannot be in a state of trying to fix somebody without creating the opposing force that is saying that something's broken and wrong with
Right.
them. And our minds can't even fathom the amount of intelligence that is inside of our body. Like, we can't even wrap our head around the process of, cellular regeneration and the digestion of our food, and my eyes being able to see you right now. Like, your mind can't even fathom how intelligent that is. So how could I ever,
Yeah.
in my understanding, think that I know what you need to do to grow or fix yourself? So it's like, for me, it's been, healing and growth is actually a byproduct of connection. And my whole goal is to create a space, or to create a container for someone to deepen their connection with themselves. And I
Mm-hmm.
look back, and I was trying to do this with body work, because there are body workers that will just kind of work on you and try to, like, get all your knots out and get all your tension out. And I did that for a while, and I burnt myself out. And I'm like, well, if the body is so intelligent, why is it creating all of these knots and tension to begin
Mm.
with? And so I started looking at it. I'm like, well, if it's creating this, well, then it's probably needing actually more stability and strength in that area. I think a lot of body workers start out with thinking that everything is a knot and everything needs to be released, when it's like,
Yeah.
we live in a duality where there's some things that might need to be relaxed and some things that might need to be turned on. And so like, the body work that the frame or the paradigm that I was working in was like, how do I help somebody become more aware of themselves? Like, my hands on their body, like, if you've ever been worked on somebody and they're pressing on your hips or something, and you're like, holy shit, that's tight, that's so tender over there. You weren't even aware of that part of your body. And so my hand is just working as a feedback mechanism to help you become more aware of yourself, to help you
Mm.
occupy that part of your body, because awareness is the main, like, the most of it, right? Your body becoming aware of itself. And then I took a step deeper, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm utilizing breath work. Well, breath is just the thing that helps you reconnect your mind back to your body, because it's the number one thing that can change the state of your nervous system. And your nervous system is the highway between, it is the communication system of your body, right? We can call it
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
communication system. Some people call it it is the chakra system. It is the energetic system, but it's the connection system of your body. And then I look at, okay, well, healing and growth is actually a byproduct of connection. When I'm helping people connect deeper to their body, when they're deeply connected to their body, healing is happening. That's the will of
Mm-hmm.
life. It already knows what to do. When we're connected to the people around us and we have healthy relationships, well, healing is already happening. Growth is already happening. When I'm connected to my environment and my food, well, healing and growth is going to happen. So I watch a lot of people get into self development or go on their healing journey, and subtly kind of utilize that as a way to attack themselves or create
Yeah.
the effect that something is wrong with them. And for me, the biggest shift in my life was, stop focusing on healing and growth and just start focusing on, how much can I connect? How much can I connect to my body? How much can I connect to the people around me? And on a deeper layer, like, that's, I in the book The Body Keeps the Score, I think he says it so well, Bessel van der Kolk. He says healing happens in
Yeah.
the presence of an empathetic witness.
Mm.
And for me, it's like, we are mammals, we are social beings. We're not designed to do things alone. And I think that, my hot take is that there's actually no such thing as self-help, because we need each other. We are in a co-creation, and that goes super deep, because I think that isolation and disconnection is the core of the issue in our world. And the same, like I said, the same disconnect that's happening inside of your own nature from your mind to your body is the same disconnect that's happening from me to, stuff that's happening on the other side of the world. It's
Right.
having people dump poison in a river that's hundreds of miles away, thinking that it's not going to affect them, but eventually that
Mm.
water will make up the water in the body of your children's children, right?
Dude, yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I had your quoted self-help is bullshit.
Yeah.
It is an illusion really that we do live in these very complex ecosystems where, like it or loathe it, we are connected. But I guess if you aren't connected to yourself, you can't really be connected to the world. You're kind of,
Mm.
to use a charged term, you're like an NPC, or you're sleepwalking
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something. You've gotten so disconnected from the actual reality that you live, and so ingrained in just these predictable patterns that, again, are functions of the mind, kind of act to keep you safe, right? It's that illusion of
Yeah.
safety, the peaceful slavery versus the dangerous freedom. And the dangerous freedom lives in those places that usually you're a bit resistant to go, because there's something there. Oh, it's a bit deep. Oh, I'm gonna have to feel feelings. Oh, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
cry. But like that's that first, the connection back to self. And
Yeah.
who am I, and how did I even get here? And those things that you mentioned with childhood and that connection to self allows you to connect to others. I've gone through a similar transformation myself. When I wasn't connected to myself, I had a very hard time connecting to other people. And of course, it's probably because something like the world is a mirror in many ways, a mirror, not a looking glass, but it's reflecting back to us our internal state. And whilst that seems very personal, it's massively influenced by everything around us, including nature, including the state of the world, including potentially even something like a collective consciousness or unconscious. So it's very interesting, and it can feel heavy at times too, because you got to feel it to heal it, and that's usually the place where people don't want to go, right? But it's Joseph Campbell said, "The cave you fear to enter has the treasure you seek." That feeling of resistance, that feeling of fear, is directly proportional to the value that you get if you're willing to go there. Maybe with the compassionate witness, like you referenced, or the compassionate witness can be yourself until you can hold
Yeah.
that space for other people too.
Yeah. And if I were to change that quote at all, I would change witness to actually welcoming, because there's a difference between, and this is something I teach my practitioners, but how to be in a state of not just witnessing, like an empathetic witness, but to be in a state of empathetic welcoming, meaning that
Mm.
I'm here with you. The metaphor that I use, or the example that I use, is, imagine that you're going to a party or a gathering, and you're the plus one. Say your friend invited you and you don't know anybody there, but you're the plus one. And you walk in and you don't know anybody. And like, how does your energy feel at that point in time? You're probably trying to stay small, not take up too much space. But what happens when the host of the party comes up to you and they're like, "Hey, Steve, I've heard so much about you. Like, welcome, come in. Everyone, this is Steve right here. Like, say what's up to him. I would love for him to meet, like, here, meet my family." How does
Hmm.
your body feel at that point in time when you're welcomed? You feel expansive, you feel safe, you feel home, you feel here
Yeah.
together with each other. And when we can embody that state of welcoming, not just for ourselves, how do we welcome all the parts of ourselves with the people around us? We all, life is wanting to express itself to the fullest extent. If you look outside and you look at trees, plants, flowers, like everything is expressing itself outwards, and we're all looking to find that unique expression, because we're individuals but in symbiotic relationship with the collective environment. And like you
Hmm.
said, one of the most draining things to your nervous system, in my opinion, is actually trying to connect with everyone around you from a disconnected place inside of yourself, because it takes a tremendous amount of energy to actually stay disconnected, which is,
Yeah.
it's counterintuitive. But what they call this in a from a bodywork perspective is parasitic tension, meaning that a lot of us have parasitic tension inside of our body where, if you have tension in your neck and shoulders, in your, in your hips and your lower back, well, it's taking nervous system energy to contract that musculature. And so if you're not aware of it and those muscles are tight all of the time, well, then it's actually draining your muscles to maintain that contraction. Well, the same
Right.
thing happens on an emotional level. If there's a bunch of emotions that I haven't let myself feel, that haven't just moved through me, because emotions they're just trying to move through you. I think there's multiple studies now that in a healthy,
Yeah.
emotionally intelligent person, it takes about 90 seconds to 3 minutes for an emotion to fully move through you. And I don't have kids, but I imagine you'd understand, like, you watch a child, they're so connected to their innate intelligence that they feel an
Yeah.
emotion, they'll let it fully move through them, and then they'll go back to baseline, right?
Yeah.
But the point being on that is that it takes more energy for you to maintain the suppression and pushing things down than it does to actually feel and move things through you, because that's our natural state, is to
Yeah.
feel, is to move things through us. And so I did a talk not too long ago on anxiety, because that's something that so many of us are experiencing. So many people in the world experience. They get caught in this roller coaster between anxiety and depression. And anxiety is actually just a truth inside of you that's wanting to bubble up and that's wanting to come
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And what happens is the anxiety is actually the resistance to the thing that's just bubbling up. Like, there's a truth that's bubbling up, there's a need, there's a desire, there's an emotion, there's probably a hard choice. Maybe it's a shift in your relationship, a shift in your career, some sort of truth that's bubbling up from you that you don't want to look at yet. And so you push it down. And it takes a tremendous amount of energy to keep pushing it down. And that's why
Yes.
most people look to outside external help to maintain that numbing, like drugs, alcohol, food, whatever it is, because it's energy intensive to push those things
Mm-hmm.
down, that we need outside support. But the truth that's bubbling up, if we've continued to push it down over and over again, what will happen is we'll get so exhausted from pushing that thing down, that the pendulum will swing to the other side, and then we'll become depressed. And for me, that's taking a deep rest. Like, you have no more energy because you've exhausted all your energy pushing down
Right.
this truth that you know is actually right for you. And then you can't hear the voice of your internal world. You can't hear the fire, the zest, the passion for what you're wanting to do, because you've spent so much
Wow.
time pushing it down. And then you'll spend time in that depression until it comes back even stronger the next time. And then they call it a panic attack, or an anxiety attack, that it's just coming back again stronger, until you actually allow that truth to bubble up. And yes, it might be uncomfortable, but it's going to be the thing that's ultimately the intelligence of realigning your life.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. There's a lot of light bulbs going off for me now, because that whole process you just described is something like the fundamental tension of dis-ease.
Right.
That's a dis-ease in the body that can
Yeah.
manifest in all manner of etiologies, right? And what I was reminded of when you were speaking, because we've got this idea of the compassionate witness, or the welcoming of an emotional state, and how so many people are wounded by something that happens earlier on in life
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't have them feel safe to feel
Yeah.
it later in life. So they try and, like, you're running against the flow of life, trying to build a dam, like, no, I can't feel this, which is exhausting and will lead to burnout. But the memory I got was just a couple of days old, which was my toddler having the most hilarious tantrum of all time, because he wanted his bacon and it wasn't finished cooking yet. And it was so cute and so endearing that I pulled out my phone and I was like, I want to remember this, because it was, like you said, it probably lasted 3 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I got a good 60-second clip of it where he's just like bawling, snot and tears. I want my bacon.
Oh my God.
And because they're so they don't have any baggage yet.
Yeah.
That is what we would call as adults. Well, that's just very silly, isn't it? That's not very get a hold of yourself kind of thing. But what's really affirming for me is like you have to let people do that,
Yeah.
because the alternative is I'm like, hey kid, shut up. You're not allowed to cry over bacon. We don't cry, or whatever else it is, whatever variation of it is that teaches them at a very, very fragile
Yeah.
level and stage developmentally that, oh, damn, what I'm doing right now is not okay. And then they'll probably get another affirmations of that down the road where, boys don't cry, whatever cultural and
Mhm.
lived baggage they pick up. We might call that trauma, right? That then is running also against this, what you're trying to say right now. It's them resisting the flow of what wants to move through them, and the exhaustion of trying to keep up a false identity, if you will,
Mhm.
or the security of the mind trying to tell them, hey, well, I know you feel this way, but remember what happened when you were like this big,
Yeah.
and your dad yelled at you or spanked you because you were so it's not safe to do it, right? And I think this is where things like the breath work and the way that you're trying to bypass the mind in a certain way with that and get right into the somatics, so we can release and remind ourselves that it is safe, and that the only way out of that is through it, and
Yeah.
that it's okay to go back in if you do it in a controlled and safe
Exactly.
environment that can be either self-led or with somebody else. That's the true path to healing, to ease, to flow.
Yeah. Yeah. You said it so well. And I think that, I don't have kids yet, so I can't, I can't fully speak to that. But when something, when we go through something stressful at any time in our life, right, we have these very adaptive responses, such as the fight, meaning I want to move towards the thing; the flight, I want to move away from it; or the freeze, meaning I'm going to numb and not feel it necessarily, which is, it's actually incredibly helpful because it's kept us alive and it's kept us safe. But
Right.
what is adaptive in one point in time can quickly become maladaptive if it has never been completed. So
Yes.
the
Yes.
completion of an emotion is the sign to your nervous system that the threat has been solved, and that like you can go back to living your normal life. And so a lot of us, if we never had the completion, well, then we can rewire the story, and we can, make all of the we can make it make sense in our mind. But that does not mean that the body doesn't still feel like it's in the presence of a tiger, right? So
Ooh, yeah.
so people are walking through the world where they've worked through everything in their mind, but their body still feels like there's a tiger lingering over them. And
Mm,
you said it so well, is that like there's a there's a small shift that we can make, because a lot of us are stuck in this sort of fix it mentality, because we don't want the people around us to feel pain, to feel sadness, to feel anger. We don't want them to struggle. But when we're in that state, we're actually saying, I don't want you to be human, right? The
right.
easy
Right.
metaphor there is just, if someone's crying, most of us want to go over to them and say, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. But what we're actually saying is, no, 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 stop. No, no, I don't want you to
Yeah,
feel,
because I don't feel comfortable.
because I don't feel comfortable 100%. And it's a massive shift from it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, to it's okay to let yourself feel that, and I'll be here with you through the whole process. I'm not going to
Yeah.
fix or change you. And in the whole somatic sphere, and I think the pendulum has kind of swung a little bit far in that realm too, where now you have so many people like just going so deep into emotional release, and it is important, but it's never about the release. I see a lot of breath workers and a lot of practitioners just solely trying to get everyone to release, but
Yeah.
that's only
Yeah.
one part of it. It's never about the
Yeah.
release, it's about the space that's created after the release for you to actually remember who you are and how you want to show up in the world. And I think that healthy parenting is, and I will be tested on this, I'm sure, at some point in time, but this is my hypothesis, is that we're trying to show these humans a healthy way of expression, because we can't just have
Mhm.
our children crying and yelling at the grocery store, and like we want to show them how to process their emotions in a healthy way. So we show them like, this is when you need to contain things. And this is
Hmm.
when you can, this is how to move that energy through your body in a healthy way. Because, you know, when I lived in Texas for a while and there was a massive school shooting there, and I couldn't help but to think about like, wow, these are humans that have had an incredible amount of pain that needed to express that in some sort of way, which it was not a healthy version of that expression, right? I couldn't help but think like, well, what if these humans were taught martial arts? Or what if these humans were like, had emotionally intelligent humans around them that could show them how to process their emotions in a healthy way
Yeah.
when they need to contain it and when they can express it. And there's a difference between containing an emotion, knowing that later on when I get home with mom and dad, like, this is when I can go through that. I can contain it for a moment. I'm not going to suppress it and act like it's not there.
Yeah. Right.
So there's a subtle difference that I think is kind of missing in the more nuanced ways inside of the somatic work that I'm seeing, you know, just recently in this work.
Yeah. That totally checks out. And I think your hypothesis around how you instill that in a child is spot on. And I think it's very aspirational,
Yeah.
and it's not easy
No.
because children are one of those things that don't come with a guidebook. And,
Mhm.
whatever, when the meltdown finds you in a busy Whole Foods at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and everybody's looking at you, now we're going to see how regulated you
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
not just your kid, because a lot of the time, again, it's a lot about me.
Yeah.
It's oh my, these people are looking at me, so hey kid, you got to shut up. And it's like, how can I be regulated? How can I teach?
Yeah.
And how can I not just teach, but how can I practice what I preach? How can I show this? Because kids will listen to some of what you say, no doubt, but they're certainly watching a lot of what you do.
Yeah.
And it's this disembodied, hey, I'm going to teach you all of these lessons that I don't live myself, that have kids' spidey senses tingling a little bit, that
Mm.
intuitive nudge, because they're so clean and so pure when they
Yeah.
come in, before life starts to take dumps on them and things happen, that they see right through it, So that's why they're often referred to as little Buddhas, right? Little
Yeah.
mirrors. They're a wonderful teacher. I've adopted this lens throughout parenthood, that I'm not really the teacher. They
No.
are my teacher. I am the guide, the
Yeah.
shepherd, the person that is there to keep them safe and to provide the range and the boundaries that are wide enough for them to experience a lot, but to know when, hey, this is where we do contain and this is where we release. So I love that frame that you had, so that we can complete this,
Yeah.
so that we can, like, fully let it move through us like bad Chinese food. We've got to complete the whole cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the frame that I've tried to instill within coaches and practitioners, because it's a you're helping somebody in their own self-discovery process. That's just what it is. There's How do I create a frame and a container for someone to discover more of themselves? You're just a self-discovery partner. And I have so many people that reach out to me that are parents that are like, "Hey, can you work with my kid? Can you teach this to my kid?" And I'm like,
Hmm.
let's actually work with you, because the kids are
Yes.
co-regulating to you more than anything, right? They're just like little
Yeah.
sponges. They're plugged into your
Yeah.
nervous system, and they're literally experiencing probably everything that you're going on, because they're such a sponge. And I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily like a deeply religious man in a traditional sense, but there's a quote in the Bible that says, "Unless you become as a child, you will never enter the
Hmm.
kingdom of heaven." And for me, that means that children are so connected to the innate intelligence of their body that they're able to experience heaven on earth. And so you'll
Yes.
never enter the kingdom of heaven unless you're as connected to your body and to life as a child is, right?
Ah, so well said, man. So well said. You've mentioned that, you've got over 2,800-ish practitioners trained in your methods now in various different countries, and I think you've guided somewhere north of 40,000 journey sessions, however you want to phrase that. I'm sure there are at least a few with that much volume, things that really stand out for you. I'm curious what you've seen, because it's one thing to go through your own experience. It's another thing to gift that to other people, whether it's with,
Mhm.
big time friends or CEOs of big impressive businesses,
Yeah.
or just the burnt out mom? Like, what are the things that you've actually seen? Because what I noticed in your work on the website, and in my own experience, I can totally see this being valid, that people will say things like, this is legitimately life-changing work. It
Mhm.
changed everything. So what are some of the things that stand out in terms of what you've been able to see firsthand in delivering this gift to other people?
I mean, no, it's such a good question, Steve. I've seen so much, man, and I am a natural skeptic. I think that the question that I run inside of my own system, I kind of look at myself as a human intelligence system. Like I got my own GPT inside of me that I'm running a
Of course.
question, a prompt. I'm running a prompt in it all the time, and the question I ask myself is is what I'm doing and how I'm working with people the best of my own capability of how I know in this moment, and at any time if I'm doing something that I get any sort of inkling that this is actually not supportive anymore, how do I fix and change it? Because there's a lot of people out there that are utilizing things that, you know, maybe they spent 10, 20 years utilizing a certain modality, and then it comes out that
Right.
it's like, oh, this actually might not be beneficial anymore.
Yeah.
But for me, I have just seen over and over and over again how powerful this is and how simple it is. And I've had my mind blown over and over again. And there's been so many things that I've seen. I mean, I just had a man, African American man, go through my training who was a Miami cop, um, first responder who, you know, he was telling me just stories of the horror stories of what he's like, you know, what they go through. They're going from site to site, from shootout to then going to drug houses where there's like,
Right.
you know, the babies in microwaves and shit. Like it was just horror stories. And then they'll go to lunch after that like nothing ever happened. And
Right.
to have him come in, with a couple other of their, you know, their team, and to actually process through it and to learn, um, how to not numb that anymore. Like, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and then now that he's out there in the world working with, police officers and first responders, and, um, you know, I have so many PhD level mental health therapists, and, you know, we have people from the body side of things, chiropractors, physical therapists, and then coaches, mindset work people. And I'll tell you that my favorite thing beyond all of it is to hear about the people that are parents and how it's changed the way that they have really just changed the relationship and the way that they look at their children. Like that is
Yeah.
beyond everything, because, you know, there's a quote, and I don't know how much I resonate with it, but it's easier to raise a child right than it is to fix a broken man. And I believe that
Oof.
it's, yeah, and I wouldn't just I wouldn't just throw the baby out with the bathwater there, but, I do believe that the youth is the future, and
Yeah.
like most of our issues, this is sort of Gabor Mate's book, The Myth of Normal. Most of our issues that we're experiencing are a very normal response to an abnormal environment, meaning that a lot
Mm.
of our patterns that we have are actually a very normal response to an abnormal situation that we've been brought up in. And so part of it's individual, but a lot of it's collective. And the
Yeah.
example that I give is, you know, I'm sitting in a chair right now. Uh, it's a very normal response for my hips to get super tight from sitting in this chair,
Yeah.
because my
Right.
body was not designed to sit in a chair. So the tension in there is a normal response to an abnormal environment. The
Mm.
cries and the yells and the symptoms of that we're experiencing culturally and individually, in my opinion, are very normal responses to a disconnected world. And that's why I believe that connection beyond anything is actually the most important piece. The vision that I get inside of myself is when I'm working with a human, I am helping them turn back on like the internet that's inside of them. the electrical
Mm-hmm.
system that's inside of them, how much of their own electricity, their own energy, you could say, their own occupation or ownership of their own body that can light their system back up. And then from there, they're able to actually connect to the people around them. And then from
Yes.
there, they're able to connect to their community. And then you pull
Yeah.
back and you look at this sort of internet of humanity. I'm trying to reignite the human internet that, in
Yeah.
my opinion, the internet that we have right now is just a representation of what's actually already there, and the
Mm-hmm.
same thing
Mm-hmm.
happening inside of their body and outside of their body. So there's been so many things that I've seen, man, but I'm trying to think of other examples that might be noteworthy. A lot of man, I love when like a mom and a daughter will come to the training, and for them
Ooh.
to, um, a lot of the times during sessions, the mother will sort of want to like be so invested and have such an agenda for the daughter's experience or for their
Yeah. Yeah.
their family's experience, that just helping people become aware of the agendas and the pressure that is put on others from those agendas. And recently I've been fascinated on the understanding of curiosity. I actually believe that curiosity is a fascinating state, just purely physiologically. When you're in a
Right.
state of
Right.
when you're in a state of curiosity, you cannot actually be in a state of trauma and stress at the same time. It's similar to this energy of welcoming. When you're actually genuinely curious about another person, you're like, you've let go of your agenda, the pressure that you're putting on them, and you're actually saying like, here, show me, tell me, I actually want to
Mm.
know. A lot of us think that we're curious with ourselves or curious with another person. We might be curious, but subtly there's a little agenda inside of there. And when we can
Yeah.
get to
Yeah.
this state of pure curiosity, our nervous system relaxes because we're open to the world telling us, like, hey, show me, tell me. And if you think about it, the last time you've been in an argument, and for me, when I'm in an argument, I'm rarely ever curious about the other
Yeah.
person's
Yeah.
state. I'm like, well, this is what happened, and this is how you hurt me, and this is the story that's playing on in my head. And then the other
Mm-hmm.
person usually is like, well, this is the story that happened in my head. And then it's my story versus your story, which probably both of them are right. And we actually just want to be felt and understood by each other and connected more
Yeah.
than anything.
Right. Dude, that is so well said. And I love that point about curiosity. It's almost like curiosity requires courage in a
Yeah,
way,
it does.
because it's the willingness to surrender your perspective,
Mhm.
your grip on being right, to hear another person. What's going on culturally right now with so much hate between political aisles or countries and everything that's happening, man. You can just feel it. There's a distinct lack of curiosity to hear the other side's opinion.
Yeah.
And I think if we actually, the internet creates a distance in a way. We call it social media. We're supposed to be more connected than ever before. And to play on this theme of connection, we're almost more disconnected despite having more
Mhm.
access to, talking to people, having a voice online, etc. But if we are to be up close with somebody, it's really hard to hate up close. It's really hard to not, you know, wish them unwell, if you're actually face to face with another
Yeah.
person. And you can also shift into that curiosity, like, wait a minute, maybe they have a radically different upbringing to me.
Yeah.
And we both want the same things. We want to feel safe. We want to survive. We want what's good for everyone. And that's almost all people all the time. And we get so lost in the disconnection through our hyper connected devices that it just fuels the divide. And again, I think the real call to action here is connect to yourself and be willing to
Yeah.
get curious and be courageous enough to be curious about why you think the way that you think, why you feel the way that you feel, what stories are you telling about your childhood. Because that quote you had a few minutes ago was really beautiful, about something along the lines of, it's easier to raise someone right than to fix a broken person. And in some ways, And I think this is what you were alluding to with not throwing all the baby out with the bathwater. Sometimes the very reason that we are broken is our gifts, right?
Yeah,
It's
man.
kind of, the light enters through the wound, to quote Rumi, that
Yeah.
they are how we create resilience and
Mhm.
healing, and they could be the catalyst for something so special.
Yeah.
And even get curious about that. Just because you might have had it really rough, don't necessarily jump immediately to, well, I am this way. Or if you're the parent one is so good. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's such a testament to how far you want this work to go in terms of its ripple effect. It's not just about, like, if you ran me through a breathwork session, it's like, oh, cool, that was cool with Steve. It's like, well, now Steve gets to go away and communicate with his wife better and
Yeah.
his children better. And therefore his children treat the people that they meet better, and they treat, like, the infinite ripple is massive. And Carl Jung had one of my famous favorite quotes about parenthood, where he said, the greatest task that a child must bear is the unfinished business of the parents.
Yeah.
And I think that, in a way, none of us are going to be perfect parents.
Oh,
We are going to, it's kind of baked into the cake that we have to put a little bit of our stuff on our kids. Hopefully it's just a little bit of a lighter
yeah.
load. But if you wanted to create a resilient, compassionate,
Mhm.
aware, loving, disciplined person, you wouldn't give them the easiest life ever. They need a
No.
certain amount of challenge. And this is, again, that lens of curiosity and the acceptance to know, like, hey, I'm not going to get it all right, and not everybody's going to get it all right, but let's take the Jordan Peterson-esque angle here of, like, let's clean up our own rooms before we go trying to fix the world. And maybe the way we do that is through curiosity and connection.
Exactly, my brother. Yeah, that could so well said. And you know, I look at it as trauma, stress, whether it's like the little things that we're going through or whether it's the big things that we're going through as a culture, they're all just questions to our biology. They're literally just a question to our biology asking us, how do we evolve from this? What's the new adaptive
Mm-hmm.
pattern? How do we grow from this? Because trauma and stress is actually it's the thing that can kill us and slowly weaken us, but it's also the thing that if we find the way to grow from it, if we find the way to
Mm.
overcome, to reconnect, to find the new adaptive pattern, that's how evolution and growth happen. And once we've done that for ourselves, only then can we actually give it to another person. And so
Yeah.
I am a big proponent of the stuff that you overcome and the wounds and the healing that you do is actually the only thing that you can give to another person, because you
That's
understand
it.
it, you walk it, you have embodied it. And even that word understanding, so many of us spend so much time reading it from books, but you're actually not standing underneath it and holding it up because you haven't walked it. And that's the thing that we actually
Mm.
can give to each other. So I couldn't have said it better than that.
Beautiful, bro. Thank you very much. Where can people go if they're
Mm.
curious about diving deeper into this curiosity, learning the
Yeah.
breath, learning the systems that you teach? Tell everybody where they can go to
Yeah.
keep up with you.
You can find us at somaticbreathwork.com, on YouTube, Instagram. My handle's Jaggers JR. If you want to connect with me personally, we have breathwork certification trainings. We have communication classes that teach a lot of this nervous system communication. And yeah, I got a podcast as well, Mind Body Mentor, that I just started going back into. And you can basically find us almost anywhere at Somatic Breathwork or me at Steven Jaggers.
Amazing. Your work is very, very needed, brother, and I think the way you deliver it is awesome. So I'm excited to connect further, and I appreciate you. And I hope our audience takes you up on those calls to action to get over there and connect with yourself as well. And we'll see you, radical humans, next week.
Yeah.
Peace out. All right, friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Radical Health Radio. We got a fresh new podcast for you every Wednesday. If you enjoyed the show, consider liking, subscribing, reviewing, and rating us on your podcast platform. It helps to spread this message of radical health. We'll see you next week.